Have you ever felt like you don't belong in a role that life has assigned to you? I once thought I would be the perfect mother, but since my daughter was born, I've had to face a harsh reality. I don't like being a mother. This feeling has left me confused and in pain, yet I don't know how to change it. If you're curious about my life, keep reading to understand why I feel this way every day. Before my daughter was born, I always thought I would be the perfect mother. I had mentally prepared myself and made plans to care for my child, hoping I would be able to enjoy every moment with her. But when she actually arrived, I quickly realized that motherhood was not something I could easily adapt to. From the very first days, I felt lost in a completely new world that I didn't know where to begin. The tears, sleepless nights, and constant worries about whether I was capable of being a good mother swirled in my mind. I held my little girl in my arms full of love, but also with an overwhelming sense of fear and self-doubt. I truly tried, to love the role of a mother. But no matter how much I cared for her, or did everything I could to give her a good life, I still couldn't shake the feelings of unfamiliarity and stress. As time passed, I realized that I couldn't find joy in raising my child. I tried to connect with her, but each passing day made me feel more disconnected from myself and from my family life. Every time she cried, I felt helpless. Simple tasks like changing her diaper, feeding her, or soothing her when she was fussy became huge challenges that I didn't know how to deal with. I had tried to be a good mother, but it seemed that everything I did only made me feel more powerless. I took parenting classes, sought advice from friends and family, but all of it just made me feel more inadequate in this role. It felt like I couldn't find any method to truly understand my daughter, and that made me feel more alone. In quiet moments, I wondered if I had made the wrong decision in becoming a mother, and whether I was capable of doing this. My daughter may not understand the pain I feel, but I can't keep lying to myself. The love for her is there, but it can't mask the discomfort and exhaustion I face every day. No matter how much I love her, I can't pretend to enjoy motherhood. These feelings grew stronger with each passing day, and I didn't know how to escape them. When I looked at other mothers, I wondered if they felt the same way. Did they ever doubt their own ability to be a good mother, like I am doing now? And are there others like me, feeling lost in this role, unable to find joy in what society expects to be natural for a mother? My daughter is not an easy child. Despite my efforts to apply good parenting methods and maintain simple rules like listening and being honest, she still manages to make me face disappointment and stress every day. I don't ask for too much from her, just that she can follow my requests and listen. But every time I tell her, pick this up or go to bed, she firmly responds with no, without hesitation. This constant refusal leaves me feeling extremely frustrated. Every simple request turns into an unfair battle. I began to realize that even though she is still young, her stubbornness and lack of cooperation were already testing my limits. In my mind, I wondered whether this was a normal phase that every child goes through, or if I was doing something wrong, unable to control my own child. These constant confrontations made the atmosphere in the house tense. Each day passed, and I felt like I was stuck in a never-ending cycle with no way out. I tried to stay calm, but she kept finding ways to challenge my patience. Even when I asked her to do something as simple as putting away her toys or cleaning her room, she would sulk and refuse, making me feel like my words were completely meaningless. I remember one time, when I asked her to eat breakfast and she started crying and yelling. I felt a surge of anger rise within me. I should have been patient and gentle, but I couldn't hold it in. I shouted, expressing how tired I was of dealing with that attitude every day. The whole room went silent, and in that moment, I realized I had lost control. Afterwards, I blamed myself for letting my anger overpower my reasoning, but I couldn't deny that the frustration and exhaustion had pushed me to that point. I thought about other children, about how other parents handle similar situations, and I wondered if I was doing something wrong in the way I was raising my child. Even though I tried my best to teach her basic values, she continued to treat me badly without any apparent reason. This made me feel like I was going upstream, and I didn't know what to do to improve the situation. Each day, I found myself in the same situation, and I wondered if I was failing at being a mother. My relationship with my husband began to show signs of strain after our daughter was born. We had once been a happy couple, always finding ways to enjoy each other's company, but now everything had changed with the presence of our child. My husband, although he didn't say it outright, I could feel that he didn't like being a father either. We talked less, spent less time together, and the distance between us seemed to grow. There were nights when, as the house fell silent, I would look into my husband's eyes and see the exhaustion in him. He no longer seemed interested in small talks, short trips, or the moments of relaxation we once enjoyed together. Instead, our conversations had shifted to discussions about our daughter's behavior, debates on who would stay up to care for her at night, or who would handle chores when she refused to cooperate. I knew he was struggling with the same feelings I was, but we couldn't confront each other directly. One time when I had had enough and felt like I couldn't bear it any longer, I sat down and said to my husband, "I hate this. Everything has changed, and it feels like our lives are now completely controlled by a child." He didn't respond immediately, just sat there in silence. Finally, he sighed and said, "I feel the same way, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's our responsibility." His words made me feel lonelier than ever. I knew we weren't bad parents, but it seemed like we were both struggling in a situation with no end in sight. I began to realize that we were facing a major change in our lives, one we hadn't prepared for. We hadn't just lost our freedom, but also the connection we once shared. Our relationship no longer felt harmonious. Instead, it felt like a cold war, where no one said anything, but both of us could feel I thought about the days before having a child. We'd wake up in the morning without a worry, enjoying simple moments together. On weekends, we could go out, stroll through the streets, talk about trivial things, and feel like life was light and easy. But now, all we had were conversations about our daughter, what she ate, when she slept, and the difficult behaviors she exhibited. We had support from family, but it wasn't enough to erase the tension between us. Each time our daughter stayed with her grandparents, we had some time to rest. But we couldn't escape the reality that our relationship was slowly becoming more distant. Every day, I felt more and more disconnected from my husband. We spoke less, shared fewer joyful moments, and I felt like the person I once was slipping away. The exhaustion didn't only come from taking care of our daughter, it came from the feeling that the bond between us was growing more and more strained. In the days before we had a child, we understood each other without needing to say much. Now all we had were silences and worries that couldn't be shared. I began to realize that the feelings of hating motherhood couldn't just be a temporary phase. They had slowly rooted themselves in my mind, becoming an inseparable part of my daily life. No matter how much I loved my daughter, I couldn't hide the feeling that my life had changed completely in a way I couldn't control. I wanted to go back to the time before having a child, when my husband and I could wake up every morning without worries, without arguments about who would take care of our daughter. There were times when I saw other mothers with smiles on their faces, seemingly so happy to be mothers. I wondered if they felt like I did. Had they ever experienced the moments I was facing, when exhaustion and stress became unbearable? I didn't want to think about these negative feelings, but sometimes they would come flooding back, impossible to shake off. One day, when my daughter had another long tantrum and wouldn't cooperate, I could only stand there, watching her, feeling trapped in an endless cycle. Every time this happened, I thought about walking away from it all, but I knew that wasn't possible. I loved her, but that love couldn't solve everything. I couldn't keep living in this exhaustion and tension without any solution. I tried to change my mindset. I tried to imagine the happy moments, the memories I would make with her as she grew older. But the reality was, those negative feelings didn't go away. I wished I could love being a mother, but each passing day made me feel more lost. My husband didn't say much about his feelings, but I knew he was struggling with the same emotions. We didn't speak about it, but both of us felt that something had changed forever. He no longer had those joyful conversations we used to have, no longer enjoyed relaxing evenings together. All we had were short discussions about our daughter, followed by silence. I realized that I couldn't change everything just by trying to think positively. Even if I wanted to go back to the life we had before, I knew that wasn't possible. I couldn't change my daughter, and I couldn't change myself. The feelings of regret and suffering still clung to me every day. I understood that one day things would change, but I couldn't rely on that hope to soothe my current emotions. Still, I didn't want to give up. I loved my daughter, and I knew I had to keep trying, even though each day was a new challenge. But a part of me still dreamed of a different life, a life not overshadowed by the stress and anxiety of motherhood. Despite having support from our families, I still couldn't escape the constant tension I was facing. On nights when our daughter stayed with her grandparents, I had a little time to rest, but everything felt temporary, not truly changing anything. I still couldn't forget the daily confrontations with my daughter, the outright refusals, the rebellious behavior that made me feel like a failure as a mother. All I wanted was some quiet space to breathe and recharge, but nothing seemed to change. Every time I looked at my daughter playing, I felt a deep, indescribable sadness. She wasn't doing anything wrong, but her attitude, the lack of cooperation, and her defiance made me feel like I was living in a world that wasn't mine. I couldn't deny that I loved her, but that love couldn't mask the feelings of disappointment, exhaustion, and emptiness I felt in my role as a mother. This made me wonder if I was the only one feeling this way. Was I the only mother in the world who couldn't love the job of being a mom? When I saw other mothers with happy smiles on their faces, I couldn't help but wonder if they were truly experiencing the same pain I was going through, or if they genuinely loved motherhood as they appeared to. That question would spin around in my head, leaving me feeling even more insecure. One afternoon, when my daughter started crying over something trivial, I couldn't keep my calm anymore. I stood there watching her and felt trapped in a cage. I didn't want to be a mother. I didn't want to endure these feelings anymore. I couldn't stop thinking that without her, our lives would be easier, lighter. But I also knew that, no matter how I thought about it, I couldn't change the past, and she was still my daughter. My husband still didn't say much about his feelings, but I knew he was going through the same emotions I was. We couldn't confront each other openly, and the silence between us grew heavier. We were both trying to maintain our family, but the exhaustion and disappointment were preventing us from doing it fully. I knew that if we continued this way, the distance between us would only continue to grow. I couldn't just keep pretending that everything was fine, but I also didn't know what to do to change things. I loved my daughter, but the negative feelings and tension still haunted me, making it impossible to enjoy motherhood. Even with the support from our families, I felt like I was still walking in darkness, unable to find a way out. And in those difficult moments, I couldn't help but wonder if life would ever go back to the way it was, when my husband and I could truly feel happy and free again.